All right, hello, friends, and welcome back to the Gaming Dad Fujo podcast. This is episode number 21, being recorded on April 17th, 2024. I am Fujosevic, your host, former professional Hearthstone player, currently working as an analytical chemist in the pharmaceutical industry. This is a place where we get to talk about all of the gaming and gaming adjacent related things that we used to talk about when we would stream regularly and post our daily YouTube videos. And instead of interrupting all of our interesting chat with gameplay, now I'm going to interrupt my talking with other topics. And on today's episode, we will be talking about, at the very least, some recent gaming lawsuits, Wrestlemania, and the most controversial topic of all time, the fact that cold temperatures will give you a cold. Let's get started. He's got no time to play video games. He's the gaming dad, Fujo. Nailed it. All right, and as we jump into it, of course, we're always going to say, hi everyone, see how you're doing, hope you're doing well. If you are on the YouTubes, hit the like button. On the podcasts, rate us. A nice 5 out of 5 stars really helps. Leave us a message, let us know how you're going. We're always looking for gaming dad gaming suggestions. In the past couple weeks, what have we been playing? Very little Monster Hunter now. Lately it's been a lot of mobile gaming. I've been slowly getting through Tears of the Kingdom. Might eventually beat that. I'm assuming another 8 weeks. I'll get through it all. At least I'll fight the final boss. Not all. Never gonna 100% that game. Let's be honest. I've been doing a lot of Brawl Stars recently. Silly little top-down MOBA on mobile. That one's been a lot of fun. Pokemon Go, not as much, but a lot more Brawl Stars for whatever reason. Definitely always looking for gaming suggestions. And of course, you know, if you're listening on the YouTubes, you can find us wherever you find your podcasts, other than iTunes. We'll figure that out. Let's jump into the first topic right now. Ubisoft, however you want to pronounce it, they're killing a game called The Crew. So normally when games get pulled by a gaming company, they just, they'll say, hey, we're turning off our official servers. This sort of thing happens from time to time, right? We've seen it in a lot, especially in the MMO world. The different thing this time is they're actually not only shutting down the official game servers, but they're pulling the license that you purchased when you purchased the game. So now they're saying, what's happening is you would normally still own the license to whatever game that you've purchased. And people in the past, specifically, I know the great example is in City of Heroes. People were able, you still had your license for the game, but official servers got shut down and people are able to then use the game because they bought the game to do their own thing with it. This is now no longer allowed because he pulled the license to your actual ownership of that game. So this is often done like in the past, like, people will run their own private servers and stuff like this. Like you can't just have the WoW servers go offline and all of a sudden just start playing WoW on a private server, right? It takes a lot of really hard working, dedicated computer science people to do a lot of things. And then a lot of money to obviously run these private servers, and which is why later on, especially we use the WoW. I'm going to mention the WoW example because that's the one I'm the most familiar with. They sell cosmetics and ask for donations and stuff like that because it takes a lot of money and effort. Like this is really strange because it's you've paid for the game and you're now no longer allowed to be using it, and because all these games now run through these launchers that you have to log on to, they basically take it off of your account. So you can't even play it anymore because they've decided to shut down their servers. It's such a weird thing. Like in the 90s, it's like Ubisoft is coming to your house and stealing the cartridge out of your out of your living room. It's out of like that you used to put into your system. It's such a strange thing. It's we're going to follow up. We talk about these live service games all the time and the challenges. And if this is, there's been a lot of backlash to this story so far. So we're going to follow up with it in the next, I was going to say next week, but in the next episode, because this is something that this is definitely people are not happy about. And if this is going to be the trend long term, there's going to be some changes in more of the sailing the high seas world, and we'll talk about that too if it gets to that. But this is a not a fun story. But and then we'll change topics to something a little more fun. Star Wars has announced some content coming out May the 4th, of course. A new Tales series, Tales of the Empire, which is really cool because the last Tales of the series, Tales of the Jedi, was incredible. I know we always talk about the Star Wars. What are we watching? Bad Batch episodes 5 and 6. Rex met up with the Shadow clones who are trying to assassinate and track down people and certain targets and stuff like that. Super cool. A couple episodes. I know I'm way behind. I think they're up to episode 13. I'm not gonna go into detail about older episodes. We're gonna try and catch up and get up to current. But Bad Batch is fantastic. But so this new content, the Tales. I mean, Tales of the Jedi was fantastic, right? You got to see this. You got to see Dooku as a Jedi, as he kind of the descent into the person that we finally saw in whatever Star Wars Episode 2, the movie, right? Where he realized as a Jedi he couldn't make the positive change that he wanted to within the confines of the Jedi rules. We see a young Padawan, Qui-Gon Jinn, which is super cool. I've seen a few. I haven't seen the trailer, but I've read the spoilers by accident. And I know it's kind of a weird thing, but you're just reading about stuff and then someone says, hey, Morgan Elsbeth is going to be in, and you go, oh shoot, I really wish I didn't know that. And then you say, hey, Grievous, and you're like, oh, General Grievous is so cool, I wish I didn't know that. And then you're like, Barriss, and you're like, okay, now I've read too much. Now I need to actually close my eyes and just do something else. So the prediction is obviously, knowing that Barriss is around, Barriss probably gets killed by Vader. That's the prediction, right? Because why else haven't we seen Barriss when we've seen all of this stuff like into Rebels and post Rebels and all of that? We know the Jedi are all getting hunted down. Apparently, Luminara did get captured on Kashyyyk during the Clone Wars, so maybe Luminara also getting taken care of there. We know what's happening there. I love the short story format. 15 minutes, really, really intense little stories. I thought it was fantastic. I hope it continues. Like they could do a Tales series every other year, I think, as this little as a release like this. I think it'd be fantastic. And we will follow along with that one as they're going. We're not going to fall behind because they're such short episodes. We can keep up with that one, even though Bad Batch we're way behind. We'll catch up though by the end. I hope by the end of the season. I hope. What are we going to talk about next? Slay the Spire 2 announcement trailer. That's super cool. Roguelike deck builder. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Short gaming times. That's exactly what I'm talking about for gaming dad hours, right? Trailer says early 2025 release, and the Steam page is already up. They said interesting. So this is a cool coding. I love this coding, the background, what's going on behind the scenes, and all this stuff. They in the release they said Slay the Spire 2 was completely rewritten from the ground up in a new game engine. So it seems like originally they were programming in Unity, that's a development software gaming engine, and apparently they moved to Godot, which is cool. I have a little experience with Godot myself. I've during I don't know if people remember, but there was this time a couple years ago where we all had to stay home a bunch, and during that time, I actually got I tinkered. Let's say I tinkered with Godot a little bit and some stuff. So if I ever get back into, I'd love to. I had some fun, what I thought were fun and interesting ideas for some RPG games I wanted to build out, but ran out of time, and that's one of the first things that disappeared from all the free time. But that's okay. Hopefully one day I get back into it, and if I ever do, obviously we will talk about it in detail here. I always thought like, oh, it'd be so cool to do like a Godot coding streams. I thought that'd be really interesting actually, as you're building out the game, the way the game engine works. You can set up a bunch of stuff ahead of time and then go on stream and do some interesting, cool stuff. But the thing about this story that I really take away is, again, it's another early 2025 release. So my prediction right now, we're calling it 8 minutes into the podcast, the Switch 2 will be coming out early 2025. Whether that means Q1, I would love Christmas 2024, but I'm assuming early 2025, spring-ish 2025 will be the Switch 2. There's all these games. We see Slay the Spire 2, that's going to be on the Switch 2. Hades 2, we talked about already, that's going to be on the Switch 2. The new Pokemon Legends game, that's obviously going to be on the Switch 2. The new Monster Hunter, we talked about that, the open world Monster Hunter. Capcom Monster Hunter has a great relationship with Nintendo. Why wouldn't it be on their new system? All of this to me is lining up. There's going to be a whole bunch of really cool games. And then, of course, there's going to be a Mario Kart. There's going to be a Smash Bros. There's going to be a Mario. All this stuff. That goes without saying, right? We don't have to address the first party. You know what I mean? The Nintendo IP. Look at there's all these extra games that are also going to come out at the same time there's a new system. I'm calling it Switch 2 early 2025. Mark, is that on any of... Is there any way we can put some money on that? We'll talk about gambling in a second. Right now, we're going to talk about something that people love to argue, that I believe disingenuously and for the sake of arguing. The fact that cold temperatures will weaken nasal immunity and make you more vulnerable to infection is the way that scientific articles are written. However, Generally, people will say cold temperatures cause colds. Put on your coat or you'll catch a cold when you go out. And then people say, but Fujo, if you go out in the cold, you're not just going to spontaneously create a virus or bacteria in your nose or your throat. Obviously, that's not what anyone means when they say put on your coat or you will catch a cold when you go outside. No one would ever mean that. So obviously, that argument I feel is very disingenuous and kind of reflective. Let's talk about society. It's reflective of society just wanting to argue instead of actually understanding the meaning of one another and having a communication, a discourse, a back and forth. People just like to argue, and because people need to be right. And I get it. Everybody loves to be right. That's why I like science, because it doesn't matter how I feel. Science is right. It's simple. Maybe I just need that simpleness. So let's go, before we jump into these articles that we're kind of talking about here. When you talk about the cold, right? We talk about the cold. First year university, college biology textbooks are going to say there are more cells of bacteria and other things in your body by pure numbers than there are human cells on and within your body. So our bodies are incredibly efficient at fighting off infection, and we do it all the time. Which is why when you go outside, and we'll talk about how our immune systems get weakened, those infections that are already on you take hold of you and will cause cold-like symptoms, flu-like symptoms. So you're not, quote-unquote, catching the cold outside, but if you were not exposed to that cold, you would otherwise not become sick. Fine. So we're already breaking down this disingenuous argument already. What else happens when it's very cold outside? People are driven inside, and we know, again, there was this whole thing where we stayed inside. We learned staying inside in big groups is a great way to spread germs around and get a lot of people sick. Also, when it's really cold out, people run their heaters. When people run their heaters, if you don't have a humidifier, like we just got one installed recently, before my nose was always dry, and now I feel great, even though to be honest, I feel like I'm a little nasally. I do blame my boss coming into work a little bit under the weather. Took a day off, but it might have been a little too late. I love you though. Probably never going to hear this, but he's a great guy. Where were we? Okay, yeah. So people are driven indoors. You get dry nasal cavities. There's a lot of mucus in your nose, which just acts as a physical layer for these bacteria. Viruses can't even reach it to your cells. That's removed. Higher chances of you getting an infection. There's the silly thing of in the winter, there's less UV just because there's less sunlight, less natural disinfection going on. Sure. 2015 paper. Iwasaki et al. Showed that the cell lining in the airways of mice, which is obviously they use the mice, it's very representative of human most things, produce fewer molecules of a group called interferons when they were cold, when those nasal passageways were cold. Interferons are a class of proteins that sound the alarm of a viral infection going on. They call immune cells to hopefully stop the infection from happening. Oh my goodness, can I pronounce this next word? I wrote it down. Mucociliary clearance is what it's called. Dry air is not good, basically. Low humidity dries out this mucus layer. Cold temperatures reduces this response. So again, it's just this thing where it's like, sure, if people are willing to accept, no hair off my chest as an idiom for when there's a situation that doesn't bother them. If you wish someone to break a leg, you're wishing them good luck. I think we don't need to get so caught up. This thing of people are always, I am correct. You don't catch a cold from going up in the cold. I get it. But there's science that backs up cold temperatures does lead directly to reduced immune system response, which leads directly to infection. We've got science to back it up. We're done with it. We can accept that the saying you should probably wear a coat, you should probably bundle up, which is why also, people, a lot more people used to wear masks. I still see people wearing masks. That's great. Some people don't wear masks. That's also great. But the mask also retains moisture in the nasal cavities. There's all this stuff. So there's a lot going on. We have the science here to show what's happening in the nose. Fantastic. We're going to move on. And we're going to move on to gambling. Oh, yes. Before lawsuits, we'll talk about gambling. Ohtani Gambling follow-up. We talked about this last episode. Mizuhara, his translator, is at fault. Apparently, he's taken over $16 million from Ohtani. This seems like a closed case. To be honest, yeah, it just seems like this is the story. It's a wild, thing that this person who had this incredible career translating for professional athletes, getting to travel with professional sports teams, getting to go to like all these incredible functions, awards ceremonies, all these things, media events. They ripped off the people who, they bit the hand that feed. There's another idiom. Wasn't literally biting his hand. Was literally stealing $16 million. But we all know what I mean. Very, very strange that this person would turn out to have been doing this. Another strange thing that professional athlete, this is a direct professional athlete, this just happened today. Toronto Raptor Jontay Porter has received a lifetime ban from the NBA following the investigation into the illegal betting that he did in giving tips. The biggest red flag apparently was when someone placed an $80,000 parlay. That's multiple bets altogether, all on Jontay Porter's unders for a certain game. And again, we talked about this, how it's so easy for someone to control their unders. Like, you need to score under 3 baskets. All he has to do is just start missing shots. It's pretty easy to be like, oh, oops, just a little to the left. So yeah, that $80,000 parlay would have paid out $1.1 million, and it got frozen, and that kind of is what led people to start looking into this. So this is someone who made it to the NBA. He's a young guy, 24, I think. Has about $2 million in career earnings. That's a good chunk of change. But if you're still making NBA minimum, and apparently serious injuries, stuff like that, potentially his contract's up this year, potentially not going to get a new one as his body's just not able to handle the stress. But if you are able to make it to the NBA, you have some real skill and talent and ability to focus and train and work hard. You have to be able to have some sort of career as a coach or a trainer. You have that much money, you can go back to school and get into your like actual training, and you come back into the NBA because you already have the connections, and his brother's a huge star. You can come back into the league and work and have a solid career. And sure, it's not the same as, being a $100 million, salary, contract player, but it's so strange. What a waste. What absolute waste for someone to throw so much away when they had that much talent and trained so hard. It's just, it's I don't know what to say. Happy trails. It's lifetime ban. Deserved if you're gambling on your own outcome. Like, I feel like that's all there is, unfortunately. And let's now move from some horrible decisions into some gaming lawsuits. We always talk about these gaming lawsuits. I feel like it's an unfortunate thing that happens, but it's an unfortunate thing that we've talked about why companies need to protect their intellectual property. Otherwise, it seems like, if they're not going to, then they can lose some of the claim. There's a whole legal thing. We've talked about that a little bit in more details. Nintendo is suing an open source Switch emulator, Yuzu. So emulators are legal. You're allowed to code something as long as you're not stealing any of Nintendo's code. You're allowed to code something to do the stuff that the Switch does, which is what Yuzu does. Now, Nintendo's made the claim that it's quote-unquote impossible to emulate the Switch without proprietary decryption keys. Now, even for Yuzu, they don't distribute their keys. So in order to use it, you still need a key from a Switch and a key from a game. The problem is that they ended up running a Patreon page that was making, was reported $30,000 per month. And when that starts happening, then a company like Nintendo is going to step in and have a claim against that. That's, it's if you're just doing it, that's not as tangible. But if you're making $30,000 a month on Patreon, that becomes a tangible target that a company like Nintendo will have to step in and defend. So that's unfortunate because, again, like the whole emulator thing, especially when I look at, the 8-bit, the 16-bit emulators that help preserve some of these games that people would otherwise lose and never have access to and things like that. It's so cool and interesting that they're able to be preserved. And I understand there's the intellectual property theft, conundrum with it all. But I also know that I've got a whole box full of Nintendo games that, when someone's going to make a ROM hack of Super Mario World, and I have a legit paid version of Super Mario World, we know legally there's no problem, and I see no issue with that. It's too bad that this one is going to get it, and they'll probably lose because when Nintendo goes after people, they don't often lose. Second story is also uh, nearby to Nintendo. It's a Pokemon story. There's a the title was funny. There was an interior decorator who moonlighted as selling hacked Pokemon cards, and when they were arrested, they said that they not hacked cards, hacked Pokemon. They did this to make a living. So this is a weird thing because basically all this person's doing is editing the save files of an offline game. Now, like, what's the analogy, right? Like I use a Game Shark on a memory card, right? I use my Game Shark, I modify my save file, and I give you my memory card. It's and this person's getting apparently jail time for this. Now, again, the story is probably a little deeper, and again, because there's money involved, this is why someone's going after them. Pokemon has this like interesting thing where not all Pokemon are equal, right? Like every Pokemon's a little bit different. You can catch at the beginning of Red and Blue, like you can catch all those Rattatas, and they're all slightly different, and they have different stats, and it can take hours to get like that quote unquote perfect Pokemon that you want. And then now when you take these Pokemon online to these online games where you can battle with your Pokemon, there's ways to detect which ones are real and which ones are fake and which ones have been caught in the wild. It's actually, I think, really, really incredible, right? But I love what a surprise. I love that part of the gaming world. But yeah, it's just a shame that like I understand that companies have to step in to defend their IP, but when it's people who are just passionate like the emulator, I understand this. It's a gray area with the hack Pokemon and stuff. But like when it's stuff like the emulators, and we always talk about these stories, people just trying to do their own thing by themselves. It's when they're passion projects and to me, it's like it gets more eyes on Nintendo, on the Switch. It's going to get more eyes. We talked about the Mario 64 hacks and stuff like that, basically working at GameCube quality. It's going to get more eyes on that. It's going to get more people interested. Like, why wouldn't you want that? But I understand from the legal standpoint why it has to happen. And from the legal standpoint, why we now need to transition into Wrestlemania. That was a fun couple of shows that we had there, right? Damian Priest cashed in Money in the Bank. I feel like it was really well done. Like that went really under the radar. No one was really expecting it. No, not a lot of predictions about Priest cashing in. We talked about it maybe a month or two ago, but I forgot the week before, the couple days before Mania happened. That was fantastic. Drew wins title, gets distracted by Punk because he just hates Punk more than anything, and Priest cashes it in. Fantastic. It's super cool. Judgment Day, super happy for Priest. Sami Zayn beat Gunther night one to win the IC title. Fantastic. Gunther's definitely elevated himself to main event level. He's gonna. I hope he's. Well, I don't want to say what I hope he does because we're going to talk about the thing. So the next thing, we'll call back to Gunther in a second. Night one main event, Cody and Seth lose, obviously. So the night two is the Bloodline Rules, which is just no DQ. But it's wrestling, so it needs a silly name, right? Like that's just the way pro wrestling is. And then of course, Funny Chaos, as we all predicted. No Stone Cold, but we got Undertaker, which, Stone Cold, of course, he's got the connection with The Rock, but Taker has the connection with Roman Reigns. Taker comes in, choke slams Rock. It was fantastic. The lights go down, the gong hits. Everyone's losing it because everyone knows that means Taker. Lights come back on. Taker's not, Taker's standing behind Rock, but Rock is looking around. What's going on? And then he turns around, sees Rock. It was fantastic. Incredibly well done. This Rock guy should really get into acting. He really, really sold it to me in that moment, to be honest with you. Yeah, like it was the Taker's the Taker made sense because he has a connection with Reigns, right? Like Roman Reigns beat Taker to start his whole like bloodline persona thing. So like it kind of makes sense. The only person that was really missed coming out was Sami, because Sami Zayn to me was so involved in the bloodline story that it felt weird, but Cody ends up winning at the end of the day. Sami's there. Everyone's lifting him up on his shoulders, which I saw a really cool parallel shot between when Bret Hart won his title off Yokozuna and everyone came out to celebrate with him. A lot more parallels too. They're both second generation wrestlers. They both wrestled against a member of the Anoa'i family. And then what else happened? Oh, and then so yeah, the point about Gunther. Yeah, Gunther. I definitely hope Gunther's the one who beats Cody. to be honest, for the title, which is like, yeah, Cody, you won, great, and Gunther beats you in 4 months, 5 months. Samantha Irvin, fantastic all weekend. Bruce Buffer gave her a shout out. So if the best person at your profession of all time gives you a shout out, that's pretty good. And then unfortunately, Rhea Ripley had to drop the title on Raw because she was injured, which is too bad. And then what else are we going to talk about wrestling? Do we have to address the AEW showing the CM Punk backstage stuff? That's all I'm going to do. We'll mention it. There's no need to focus because Punk he's not there. There's going to be no payoff. The only thing that potentially happens out of this is that Drew will comment on it. And then maybe WWE does the hilarious thing of having Drew and Punk fight in the background behind someone else's backstage promo. That's the only thing that is gained from this. AEW didn't get a massive pop in the ratings, anything like that. So it's they did it. They felt like they had to show it for whatever reason. It didn't get them the massive attention they were probably hoping for, sustained attention at least. There's definitely more buzz and discussion about it, but I don't know. It didn't seem like a great thing. And what is going to be the next and final topic? Atari Halo 2600 is what it's called. Released by a fan. Online goes by Ed Fries. And coded this quote-unquote Halo-esque game to run on the Atari 2600, which is super cool. And they wrote up a little bit of a write-up about how the development of the game worked. It's an Atari game, so there's not a lot there. What did this person say? There's 4 bytes of spice, 4K of space. Not a lot going on. 64 screens. The game has some power-ups, some shields, much like Halo. There's a final boss. After the final boss is beaten, the final boss also, this article went into some great detail about how the final boss coding worked. Because in Atari, generally, you can only have 2 projectiles from 2 different enemies at the same time. But wanted the boss to feel different from a normal enemy, so the boss can shoot 2 while you can still shoot 1, so there's 3 on the screen. And so there's like this effect where the enemy's missiles, like missile 1 will have to like flicker off while missile 2 flickers on, and then the next time the screen reprints its images, it'll cycle back and forth. Which honestly, if you've played Atari games, that sort of flickering happens all the time, and it is just this limitation of what the Atari can physically do. So yeah, after you beat the final boss, there's a legendary mode where you can play the game increased difficulty, which is just super cool to do like in an Atari game. Like we've seen that in a bunch of games. Mario 1 did that as well. Very early example. So they told a story about how they read a book called Racing the Beam, which is about programming in the Atari 2600. It was written in assembly language, 6502 assembly language. Ooh, that's gotta be really, really fun. There's a lot of details about the memory limitations. There's 76 clock cycles whenever there's a line is being drawn on the screen. So in the simplest code will take 2 clock cycles. So it's really, really challenging way to code, but I love these fan projects. I don't know what, especially with these like retro fan projects. And then there was a discussion about they discovered this like a bug basically left in the game during they did some playtesting that they ended up calling Magic Land. It only exists because some of the code's being interpreted in a strange way. And so like the screen's kind of distorted a little, but they left it in the game because it's this cool thing. And again, freely available. Good way to do your fan projects. And I love these retro fan game projects. I think it's so interesting that people have these passions for these interesting things, these interesting games, these interesting hobbies. I definitely wish, it would have been interesting if I had been following some of these more in detail while we were still streaming and recording. If we could have been playing some of these things while also talking about them, maybe doing like a weekly recap, but that's okay. We're here where we are. That's going to be all the topics for this week. Strange couple weeks for gaming there. But I think there were some, I think there was some really interesting stuff. What else is going to be happening moving forward? We're looking for gaming, obviously mobile gaming suggestions. We're going to be getting through Bad Batch. We have some more shows. Oh, we got to finish talking about Avatar season 1. I don't know how I forgot that, but I did. We'll get back to that as well. I think that's going to be all of everything for the day. Thanks for stopping by, everyone. I hope you're doing well out there. Stay safe. Be good to each other, wherever, whenever you are. And we will talk again sometime very, very soon. Bye-bye.